When a deal falls through, it's very easy to spiral, especially if it's a big one. I've nearly lost deals and then they've come through. But sometimes you actually do lose a deal. But what's important is don't panic. When you've let the deal breathe, at that point is the time to speak with the client. Calmly, collectively, and putting yourself in their shoes. Because at the end of the day, it's very important that we get the best result for our clients. Welcome back to Rise Above the Ranks, brought to you by Estate Media. I am David Parnes, and today we are going to dive into a deal that I thought was completely lost until it wasn't. So in real estate, we all have had that sinking feeling. You think the deal's done, the buyer walks, or the seller backs out, or both. The whole thing unravels, but every now and again, with the right timing, the right strategy, and a bit of luck, a dead deal can indeed be brought back to life. In this episode, I'm going to share a high-stakes deal that fell apart at the finish line and how we revived it, the key decisions that turned it around and what you can do when you think all hope is lost, and how to stay calm, which is actually quite difficult, but you've got to stay calm, strategic, and persistent, and that can save the day. So before we jump in, if you're serious about leveling up your real estate game, check out Elite Agents. That's our exclusive coaching community. You'll get access to me, other top agents, live Q&As, and proven strategies that'll help you close more deals and avoid costly mistakes. Okay, without further ado, let's get into it. So, the deal that I thought was gone, I'm going to take you back to, one of the more stressful, I want to say one of the most stressful deals because they're all relatively stressful, but this is one of the more stressful deals of my career. It was actually a listing that we signed, and at the time it was a really big listing. It was one of the biggest, if not the biggest, in my career at that time. We signed it. It was over $30 million, and it was in Bel Air, and it was a beautiful house. But the market was not really responding to where we were priced at that time, and we actually had a 1-year listing agreement. But the seller had the right to cancel at any time with 1 week written notice. Now, I wouldn't agree to that these days, but then I was, it was a huge listing and I needed it. And we let that clause go into the contract. What had happened was that we marketed the property, we showed it, we did everything we could. And we got close. Actually, I had a buyer that wanted to buy it, and they wrote an offer. And we weren't, actually, they hadn't written the offer. They were close to writing the offer. But he wasn't quite ready because he was working on a couple of things at the time. And he needed a month or two. So what happened was the seller gave me a call, and the seller said to me, listen, I need to cancel the listing. I was like, why? He goes, because the agent that sold me the house has a buyer. And the only way she will present this offer is if she has the buyer and the seller side. I said, that's crazy. Why wouldn't she just take the buy side? I mean, half of something is better than 100% of nothing. But no, she was being greedy and she was upset she didn't get the listing, even though she sold the client the house. So she would only present this offer, which is actually not allowed. But regardless, the seller didn't really want to take any chances because he needed to sell. She would only present this offer if she was on both sides of the deal. So I called up my client, my buyer, right? Because I had the listing and I also had the buyer. So I had both sides of this deal, and she wanted both sides of the deal. And I said to the buyer, I was just completely honest. I said, listen, there's a clause in the contract that says I'm going to lose this listing with 1 week written notice. I agreed to it, such is life. And you either step up now and this is the number you can buy it for, or you basically are going to lose this deal and I'm going to lose the listing. Totally transparent. The buyer half believed me, half didn't believe me, but nonetheless, convinced him to step up. He did. And we agreed the deal, and we got the escrow. So I had both sides of a $30+ million deal, which was incredible. And I thought it was over at that point. So I guess the lesson is so far that the other agent could have had the escrow for the buyer had she not made the seller cancel the listing, and this took time, right? So we went into escrow and we were doing inspections, everything was fine, and I get a call from my buyer and says, can the seller cancel the deal on me? I said, absolutely not. If you lift contingencies and you close, the seller can't cancel the deal on you. He goes, I go, why? He goes, because I just got a call from the seller saying that the other buyer stepped up now and wants to pay me $1 million for my contract. He goes, I just want you to know that what you told me was the truth, and you weren't, telling me any lies, even though I didn't think you were, but now I know you are 100% telling the truth. And I want you to know that I'm going to close on this property and I'm going to live here for a long time, and I'm very grateful for you. I said, thank you so much. He rejected the $1 million to take the contract off of him, closed the deal, and I had the buyer and the seller side. The other agent who was being greedy got nothing. And what is incredible is that it all happened the right way, in my opinion. I was completely honest with my buyer. I didn't embellish any truth. I admitted to him that I would lose the listing and he would lose the deal. And I told him the truth, that this buyer was really there with another agent that wanted both sides of the deal. And the truth always comes out at the end of the day. And this is a really, really good example of that he half believed me, but then he got that call from the seller who then wanted to try and take the contract away from me again. And that kind of solidified the fact that I was telling the truth, which I do. And I think that, the other agent got zero. She could have taken half of something, but instead she got 100% of nothing. And, I think that the moral of the story is always be honest with your clients, always do the right thing, do right by people, and never be greedy. It's just not worth it. It doesn't work. And I'll always remember that, because it was a huge deal at the time. And even if it wasn't, it was still, it meant a lot to me. And it just showed me that just be honest, stay cool, be honest, put your cards on the table, and your clients will appreciate that. That's my takeaway. And I think that was a really, really, really great lesson to learn. So if you guys ever have any issues like that or come across that, just remain calm, be honest, because the truth will always come out. And don't be greedy. That other agent was going for 100% when she could have just taken 50%. And I would have happily done that deal with her. It completely backfired. So that is my lessons learned from a deal that almost fell apart, that could have fallen apart, which ended up not falling apart and actually being one of the defining deals in my career. Hope you enjoyed that. So another topic I want to speak about is turning panic into strategy. When a deal falls through, it's very easy to spiral, especially if it's a big one. But I've learned a couple of lessons. And by the way, this happens all the time. You've got to just let it be. And the last example I gave, I've nearly lost deals and then they've come through. But sometimes you actually do lose a deal. But what's important is don't panic, right? You need to consider certain points. You need to stay calm. You need to pivot, and you need to think logically, not emotionally. And the strategies that I use to detach just enough to think clearly and reevaluate is stepping away from my emotion, right? Because the emotions don't help. The emotions are not going to help you get a deal done. If anything, becoming emotional is going to prevent you from coming up with a solution. And more than that, becoming emotional can actually sabotage any chance of recouping that deal. When we get emotional, we can, go off at a client, we can go off at an agent, we can damage relationships, we can make rash, knee-jerk decisions which are not going to help us or our clients or the deal or anyone. So I always take a deep breath. And I call people that I trust because they're non-emotional about it. So I will call somebody and I'll say, look, this just happened. What are your thoughts? It's always good to get a second opinion from someone that you trust that is not emotionally invested in the deal. So that's my first bit of advice, is call someone that you trust in the industry that gets it, that's not emotional, that can give you that perspective, because it's hugely valuable. And also, sometimes people say, don't push against a closed door, right? So don't force something that's not meant to be, because if you're trying to force it through, it's not meant to happen, or at least it's not meant to happen the way you want it to happen in that immediate term. Sometimes you just step back and let it breathe. Let the buyer breathe, let the seller breathe, let everyone breathe, let everything breathe, and let things just sit for a moment. And we're not here to force anyone. We're not here to strong arm anyone. We're just here to guide people to get to the best result possible. And I think that's a very powerful concept when you think about it. You know, nothing needs to be forced. And deals happen. Sometimes deals don't happen in our own time. You know, as a realtor, I find myself waiting a lot because things don't happen as quickly as I'd like them to happen. And sometimes for very, very good reason. So very important, take a step back and let things breathe. Take advice, take a step back, and then communicate smoothly. Don't be pushy. When you're calm, when you have conviction, when you've taken advice, when you've let the deal breathe, at that point is the time to speak with the client. Calmly, collectively, and putting yourself in their shoes. Because at the end of the day, it's very important that we get the best result for our clients. The other issue is preventing a deal fallout in the future. Of course, not every deal can be saved. Sometimes you let them go, but you'll get them back. But many can be prevented from falling apart in the first place. And, there's a number of strategies that you can use to help lower the risk. One of them is set realistic expectations early on. If you're taking a listing, if you're representing a buyer, even when you're negotiating, set realistic expectations. If you're representing a buyer and the seller is, emotional or difficult, or the other agent is difficult, just let your buyer know that it's going to be a slow play, right? Because what you don't want to do is avoid surprises. And if you've managed and set those expectations from the get-go, it's going to serve you very, very well going forward. Another one is always be the calmest person in the room. Now, day to day, I'm pretty, highly strung. I can, be stressed, et cetera, But when I'm doing a deal, I'm actually surprisingly cool and calm and collected, because by being calm, by listening, you don't have to talk over people. And your biggest nuggets of help to get a deal done is going to be what you hear from the other side. And the only way you're going to hear the other side speak is if you are quiet. Silence is golden, especially in a negotiation. It's not all about who talks the most. It's not all about convincing people. It's not all about telling people what to do. Sometimes it's about sitting there and listening, because that's how you're going to hear the advice or the mindset of the other side. And only when you know the mindset of the other side and where they're at, are you going to be able to tackle the situation and deal with the situation to the best of your ability, and frankly, make sure the best outcome happens. Know when to bring third-party support. This is a big deal as well. Sometimes as a realtor, we can't answer certain questions. So what I do is I have a trusted circle of advisors, relationships, people that I work with, from lenders, mortgage brokers, attorneys, stagers, contractors, you name it. It's very, very valuable to have that trusted circle, because they're going to appreciate you potentially referring them clients, but at the same time, they're going to lend their support based on their expertise. We can't be the jack of all trades and the master of none, right? We are the master of our craft. We're the master negotiators. We're the master marketers. We're the master at hopefully knowing exactly what market we deal in, values, comps, with conviction. However, certain issues can arise which are just out of our realm, and defining those as out of our realm is hugely important. And there's nothing wrong with not knowing the answer to something. Sometimes it's better to bring the attorney in, because we don't want to put ourselves in a position whereby we're acting as an attorney when we absolutely should never do that. And frankly, it's okay not to know the answer to something. So again, I can call an attorney that I work with a lot, mortgage broker that I trust, stagers, if someone wants advice on, decluttering, making their house look great for photographs. So it's really, really important that we know that we can pull on those trusted advisors. And I recommend everyone out there have that circle of trusted advisors, that if they don't know a question or something's out of their realm, just pull those people in, because they can save a deal, they can help a deal, they can enhance the deal, they can create a better outcome all the way around. So very, very valuable. And when a deal does collapse, don't see it as a failure. It's the setup for your next big win, or like in my case, a second chance to get it right. So this deal taught me no matter how dead a deal is, it's never dead until everyone walks away for good. And even then, you'll be surprised with a little patience and professionalism what that can do as well. So the next time you lose a deal, don't write it off, follow up, keep the tone positive, keep the door open. You never know what might come back through. And if you want more strategies to close smarter, negotiate better, and stay one step ahead in today's market, check out Elite Agents. It's hugely valuable. You'll get hands-on coaching, real-world advice, and a community of top-tier professionals who are serious about growth. And if you got value from this episode, share it with another agent. Don't forget to subscribe. And thank you for listening to Rise Above the Ranks. Until next time.